There we go. So, good morning, everyone. It's so lovely to see so many of you this morning. I'm sure more will be joining as we go through. So, welcome to the LLR Leadership Conference. This is our Leading with Care During Turbulent Times conference, and we're so pleased to see so many of you this morning for what we hope will be an insightful and empowering event. And this is designed for you as managers and leaders across the health and social care sectors. And we're also joined today by many of our other colleagues from emergency services, local authorities, VCSEs, and Northampton colleagues. So my name is Charlotte Harris. I'm the Health and Wellbeing Lead at Leicestershire Partnership NHS Trust, and I'll be guiding you through today's online conference. So, as I said, today we will be exploring the practical approaches to compassionate leadership and be able to equip you with the tools and strategies needed to navigate the uncertainty and change effectively, whether you're facing workforce challenges, managing difficult conversations, or focusing on your own well-being. So we'll be going through the 3 masterclasses today. So our first one will be looking after your team, then looking after you as a manager, and we're taking a short break, and then finally our final masterclass will be on difficult conversations and employment support. This session is being recorded, so you can return back to it. We'll send those recordings, the access to you after this session today, as well as a comprehensive toolkit that's got all of the guidance and resources that we're using and sharing throughout each of the masterclasses today. But for now, I'll hand over to one of our guest speakers.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the event. I was reflecting on my own journey as a leader as we are halfway through the calendar year, or just over halfway through the year, around how different this year feels. I've been a leader in the NHS for almost 20 years. I still remember the Lansley reforms and the first targets for the NHS, and it seemed impossible to lead our teams to have 18-week referral to treatment, so the 18-week RTT, which, as an aside, came from a Daily Mail headline where people were routinely waiting for 18 months. And I remember back then thinking, this is a political nightmare, this is ridiculous, this is impossible. And actually, over the following 4 years, we did lead people, we did the best thing for our population. And actually, looking back, at that point, I thought that was a really difficult, turbulent year, and this year is no different. Working in the public sector, one thing is always certain: change. The change of our political agenda, change of our financial challenges, change of the people we lead. The one consistency is our role as leaders to role model, to look after ourselves, to look after others, to support people to be their best. And actually, when we think about the tools that we have, we've accumulated loads through our years as leaders, but it's really good to remind ourselves of what those things are that help us be our best selves. And if I just think about the way the agenda is structured, it isn't just about what you give to your team, it's about what you do for yourself to be able to help lead. My mentor often reminds me that when I am at my most stressed, when I've got the biggest workload, the thing that I forget quickest is how to look after myself. And actually the importance of not just giving great advice to my team, but to role model. So when I am working 12 hours a day and sending emails at 6:30 a.m. because I can't sleep, actually people role model that and they absorb that behaviour. So when you're sat here today and thinking about the tools that either you're being reminded of or are brand new to you as a leader, just think about how you then role model that for your team. So look after yourself, enjoy these next 2 hours. It's going to be a really great event, and I'm looking forward to seeing the questions you come up with and what tools I will implement from this morning. Thank you so much. And Shirley, are you in the room?
I am, yes, thank you.
Oh, brilliant. I'll
I had
hand over straight to
difficulties
you
getting
then.
in at first, but thank you very much, Alice. And welcome to everyone today, and thank you so much for inviting me to co-chair this really important event with Alice. I'm delighted to see so many of you here today. It is a clear reflection of the value you place on stepping away from the demands of your day-to-day roles to invest in your development as compassionate and resilient leaders. And today's event offers a real vital opportunity to reflect on how we lead with care, compassion, and authenticity, whilst also recognising, as Alice says, the importance of your own well-being. We know, as Alice have mentioned, the pressures you face, whether from recruitment and retention challenges, financial constraints, or organisational change, they're all significant. And that's why it's important to create space like this to develop and explore practical leadership approaches that can help you support your teams through these complex times. To me, my team is the most important part of my job. I cannot meet any KPI outcomes without that happy, healthy, and motivated, passionate, committed team. And that's down to me to make sure that they have that, they have all the support that they need to be that. And looking, I'm here to represent the adult social care element of our workforce, and looking specifically at that workforce, our recent size and structure report really highlights a scale of leadership responsibility in our region. So across LLR and Northamptonshire combined, we see a workforce of about 53,500 adult social care staff and approximately 4,200 in managerial posts. So that means about 8% of the workforce are in leadership roles. And that's a significant proportion who carry the responsibility of guiding others. So it's essential that you as leaders are equipped with the right skills, knowledge, compassion and resilience to enable those individuals and teams to thrive. It's absolutely great to see our local systems coming together to host events like today, which provide not only professional development, but also that moment to stop and pause and focus on your own well-being. So I really encourage you to take the most of the diverse range of workshops available. So each one's designed to inspire, to offer practical solutions and spark those ideas that influence positive change in your organisations. The workshops offer you time to look at how you develop a healthy and positive culture. Importantly, take time to look at your own well-being, and offers a practical guidance for the range of really difficult situations that sometimes you experience as a manager. So thank you again for being here, and I really do look forward to a day of learning, reflection and connection as well. So thank you again for inviting me.
Thank you, Shirley. Thank you, Alice. That's a brilliant opening and just sets the scene for today's conference. Just before we start, before we begin, there's just a few housekeeping points. So throughout the session today, please raise your hand if you would like to speak. We do have the Q&A function working to join the conversation and interact and engage. We want you to be able to actually do the doing here today and get those practical skills straight away. Although please be mindful of your surroundings while attending today. A short break is scheduled just past the midway point, so we're here until 11, so we have got our break included to role model that good wellbeing practice. Please maintain professionalism throughout, be respectful and courteous to our speakers, adhere to your organisation's policies and demonstrate their values and leadership behaviours. Could we please also remember to maintain confidentiality when sharing? Please know that this session is being recorded. Brilliant. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Stuart Rees and James White from the Healthy Workplace Leicestershire and Rutland Public Health team at Leicestershire County Council to deliver the first masterclass on looking after your team. over to you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Is our presentation coming up?
Yeah, sorry, I'll just take control of the slides, James. So
Okay.
I'll pop them over.
So just echoing what was said before, thanks for having myself and Stuart Rees today. We're part of Healthy Workplaces Leicestershire and Rutland. Just a short little piece about who we are for people who don't know. The programme is delivered by Leicestershire County Council's public health team, and we align with Rutland County Council as well. So our programme helps organisations across both Leicestershire and Rutland of all sizes to become a healthier workplace to work for through our accreditation model. We're a free to join service for all programmes and services throughout Leicestershire and Rutland, and we provide a tailored support based on each workforce. So depending on your needs, we can put that support in place for all staff. The programme aligns with the NHS and Public Health England priorities, and our main aim is obviously to improve public health improvement, reduce absences and support all staff in all aspects. And the next slide, Stu. So a brief little bit part of the session plan, what we're going to talk through. So we're just going to have a quick look at some workplace statistics. What is making every contact count? A short clip of that. We're going to do a quick brief healthy conversation skills activity. We're going to look into healthy conversation skills for managers training, so the training which we deliver. We'll do a quick activity to try to support you around that. And then we're going to look at some challenges, what you have as managers that's supporting your team to help you look after them. And then we'll go over some quick open courses which we're delivering in the near future as part of the Healthy Workplaces programme to help you to support your employees. So we're just going to start off with some short statistics. So this is just by Mental Health First Aid England, and this captures kind of the impacts which go on within the workplace for both managers and employees. So the top one, so 45% of employees feeling comfortable discussing mental health concerns with their managers, often fearing negative repercussions from that. 35% of employees say they have experiencing some sort of discrimination in the workplace due to stigma, which is impacting on poor mental health. And then the final one, so companies that foster a culture of open communication and mental health awareness often see a 20% increase in employee retention rates. And
okay, that's brilliant. Cheers, James. Thank you for that. So I think probably some of you are wondering as well, so why we chose MEC as an opportunity here, working in the NHS. I'm sure majority of you are familiar to making every conversation count and how that works in your role as managers, but also as colleagues in the public sector. But what James and I do here is we try to support managers in our healthy conversation skills, which James will come into a little bit later on to talk to you about if you're interested after this event. So basically, as a manager, we feel it's important to understand how your team are reacting, especially during turbulent times. So one of the things we're going to do today is just take a couple of those elements just to bring them in, to bring them alive and just show what we can do within our training, and hopefully give you those skills as well as managers to support during these uncertain times that we have through the NHS and through the public sector with our colleagues here. Okay, so first off, I'm just going to ask you, as managers, if you could either put your hand up if you strongly agree, are you responsible for the choices that people make in your team? So the choices they make in your team with regards to health, their own personal, outside of the workplace, etc. So if you strongly agree, don't put your hand up. If you strongly disagree, put your hand up using the app on the phone. Okay. So we've got 1, 2, 3. That's good. So a lot of strongly disagrees are coming up. Fantastic. Excellent. We've got 9, 10, 11. Yeah, we're getting a few strongly disagrees. 12, 13, 14. Perfect. Okay, I'll leave it there for the time being, but thank you for your input on that question. Just want to open up to the room if anybody's got a question as well. Would anybody like to volunteer why they strongly disagree that as a manager you are responsible for your team, the choices they make? Anybody like to volunteer? You can put your hands down now, so just jump in if you want to.
I think people making choices outside of work, there are far more influences on them. They're not in the workplace, they're not under our influence. And as much as we can encourage and inform and support people, there are other influences on them outside, and they're an individual. They will make their own choice from the information they have.
That's a fantastic response. I couldn't put it better myself. Exactly. There's different areas, there's different influences, and we'll come on to the next slide shortly. Is there anybody that strongly agrees at all around that? It'd be interesting to see what your thoughts. I'll give it literally 5 seconds if anybody wants to jump in. 2, 3, 4, 5.
I don't mind jumping in as a sort of not strongly agree, but you do have a responsibility for work-based decisions if processes are not in place and support isn't in place in education and clinical supervision, etc. So there is a degree of responsibility through your actions as a manager, but obviously that is sort of within work-based situations. So I was more of I would put myself as a 3 in the middle.
Perfect. Excellent. No, this is a really, really good response as well. Obviously, we are empathetic individuals. We are, as managers, want to take, support our colleagues as much as possible. So again, really good response there. The general responses through the MEC conversation and the skills when you go through the training is going through to the strongly disagree. And that's the reason, because everybody has to make their own choices. We can only advise, support, as managers, those individuals for their, to give them the tools really outside of the workplace. So with resources that we have in the workplace, such as occupational health, human resources, there might be a counselling telephone line that you have. There might be other support services within, or employee benefits that you may have within the NHS and our colleagues across the different sectors and the ICBs, etc. So it's always worth referring to that as well. Just advise individuals, they're there, they're available to you. So that would be my strong kind of suggestion around that. But yeah, absolutely. Between 3, 4 and 5, I can certainly see your points around that. But certainly 1, I'd be a little bit concerned as a manager if you did feel that way. And obviously feel free to reach out to ourselves, or if you want to discuss further after this session. So thank you for that one. Okay, so I'm just going on to the next slide, please. Okay, so is anybody, the first person that responded earlier was talking about the individual lifestyle factors and things like that. Is anybody aware? Put your hand up if you're aware of this the wider determinants chart at all. Brilliant. There's a few that have as well. That's great. This is just to remind people of, the individual factors, and people are not the same. So we're looking at the terms of reference for an individual. So the eye of the beholder. So if we look at the red situation, a lot of those factors may change. So the age, the sex, constitutional factors, which we find in the NHS at the moment, with changes with political circumstances, etc. So when we talk to our team, everybody's got a different view on how, potentially workplace uncertainty will have an effect on them. Some people might not have a family to support, so they may need, work colleagues a little bit more to lean on about certain circumstances as well. They may have social community networks that they can use as well to support, to get advice, to for support. So it's always worth looking about those kind of scenarios when you're speaking to the individuals and your teams as well. And then also you've got to understand the working conditions, so new environments, etc. This is where we come in and what we're talking about today. Potential, is there any kind of risk to unemployment, work environments, what education they've had as well, how we can support them through these turbulent times as well. And then lastly, the blue sector says the social, economic and cultural environmental conditions. So generally the political environment, what's going on in the world with Ukraine and Russia, obviously as well, the situation with Israel and Gaza, etc. So those kind of things, global warming, some other stuff that tends to wrap everything around it. But there's a really good graph if you want to have a look at that, and that's, as I say, it's the wider determinants graph if you're really interested in that. And James, I'm sure you can put something in the chat or the question and answers as well with the link on that. So yeah, next slide please. Okay, so after digesting quickly the wider determinants chart, if you can put your hand up, and again, if you strongly disagree, if our staff, our colleagues come to us with solutions. So if you put your hand up if you strongly disagree, and then okay, there's a few there. Okay, that's great. Can someone just maybe just jump on to put their suggestions why they strongly disagree that people come to us with solutions?
Yeah, hi. The majority of my staff don't come with solutions. They want me to find the solution for them. I think I have one member of staff that's actually proactive and will look for solutions before coming to me. And I think it's just that they feel dependent on having that approval from me rather than coming and saying, look, I think this is a good idea. This is how we should resolve this. They want to be told rather than look for it themselves.
That's a great point. Yeah. And how many staff do you manage?
Well, at the moment, over 20.
Yeah, exactly. So your time obviously is kind of very restricted with managing, and plus your day duties as well. So again, yeah, it's one of those things to obviously need to look at. But the general consensus is, I think, depending on the management style, depending on our style, if we can keep the communication channels open, there's a potential that, maybe someone will come with a problem, but if we've got those tools and toolkits that we can give individuals to say, okay, well, have you looked at this, have you tried this, referring to other resources that you may have. We've got some resources as well within Healthy Workplaces in the community about their personal kind of situations, then hopefully those work kind of those work opportunities or the work challenges will become a little bit easier. So making sure that you know exactly what employee benefits are available, where to refer people to, what support is available to, you might be able to support them when, and just checking in with them as well. That could be a possibility every, couple of days, 3 days, just ensuring you're checking in with them to see how they are. And then hopefully we'll change the mindset for that individual. Yes, that won't always be the case, but with the majority of people, I think they do want to find their solutions, and that's what the training tends to say. And with regards to the training, so I'll come on to the next slide as well. So thank you for that comment, really appreciate it. Okay, so we've taken those ins and outs. So we've got the scenarios, and as managers, we've probably seen these before. So one of your colleagues, you line managers, had several episodes of sickness over the last 3 years. They're concerned they may lose their job due to poor absence records and uncertainty in change and potential redundancy in the workplace. As a manager, how would you support this and a colleague around sickness? I'm going to do something different here. I'm going to bring James in, my colleague. James, being a manager yourself, how would you actually look at supporting an individual around this?
I think a lot of it from the training stuff which we deliver, a lot of it regarding sickness is first obviously finding out what's going on with the person, how you can help support. It's having them kind of open conversations, open discovery questions, trying to find out a lot more what's going on instead of your kind of closed questions where you're possibly going to get that yes or no answer. You want to find out what's going on. the training which we deliver looks a lot at signposting, so knowing what services are available within the workplace, within your organisation, which you can hopefully signpost that person on to support obviously the sickness which is going on, finding out obviously the correct lines to go down to refer that person on to. So it's kind of that being that open, keeping that conversation kind of flowing, and letting that person speak.
Yeah, that's brilliant, James. Thank you for that. Yeah, we're just going to go on to the next slide as well. So I'm confident. Sorry, I understand there's time restrictions, but as James mentioned, as I'm sure you're probably aware, there are certain things and responsive styles that we can look at when we speak to our staff, either on a one-to-one or a team meeting, etc., to ask them about open discovery questions. So the open questions. So basically, how, the what. How are you feeling today? What are you planning to do around potentially your sickness absence, if we use that? Why? How is the other one that we use? When? When was the last time you went to your doctor or something like that? You could potentially ask on that one. And again, that may get a little bit more information from those individuals. The other thing we do have in our toolkit is the closed question. And sometimes if you get people asking open questions, they may go on, they may ask other questions that may not be related, or responses that you don't want to hear. So it may be worth asking a closed question. So is that a good thing, or is basically that working well for you? That'll be yes or no, and then you get that kind of response. So you can use those closed questions as well. The other thing that's so important is having that time, making that space for the individual to come to you on a one-to-one basis in a private room. Even if you're really busy, just say to them, look, can we make time 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes at the end of the day? If you can come and see me and ensure you're there, just put everything down, put your mobile phones down, take any distractions away, don't have any emails open, etc., and show empathy and reflection, and really support those individuals to understand where you are. So do feel making that time in the day to speak to them. It will help you and also the individual in the long run. Other thing is, people say, in my experience in telling suggestions, they're not great responses, and they may be like a last resort. But sometimes when we were talking about earlier about people come to you with solutions or problems, sometimes they want some kind of advice and experience, and it doesn't harm at all just to give you a little bit of kind of, it's worked for me, it may not work for you, but this is a potential option that you could look at, for example. Or telling and suggesting someone, I suggest, have you contacted the employee assistance program, your counselling team? Have you contacted your GP? Have you been in contact with local authority if people are looking to lose weight or stop smoking, etc.? That could have an impact on their health, etc. You may never found out that someone's wants to lose weight, or they've been eating too much or something like that. So you're there to support and help those individuals when needed. So next slide, please. Okay, so looking at those responses there, and I'll use James again as an example. You're in the staff room and one of your team members mentions that they're very stressed out with their workload, uncertainty around their role as well. You're their manager. The only thing that you can that can relax them, they've mentioned, is a bottle of wine every evening. How would you approach this? James, over to you.
Regarding this, I think you need to obviously find out what's going on with the person. Is it to do with work? Is it kind of outside work related? If that person wants to open up to you about that, it's being empathetic as well, showing that kind of you care. That you are willing to listen. If that person obviously starts speaking to you and is going on about things going on that's difficult to them, listen to that person, make sure that you are showing that you're kind of understanding what's going on, and like I said, showing compassion. In the world at the minute, there's a lot of things going on, so whether it's work related or outside work related, make sure you are listening to the person, being understanding, and just being open. I think we've found it's done before when we've delivered this course. This kind of question kind of sparks a lot of kind of conversations and answers, because I think everyone responds in a different way. I don't know what you think about it, but
yeah, I agree. So the other thing I think from our roles as managers, as well as working with patients and the NHS, obviously there's a risk factor with regards to, is there a red flag about them potentially coming into work maybe over the limit? Are they absolutely 100% able to carry out their role? So that's got to be kind of a flag with you when you have those difficult conversations with the staff, saying, okay, how much do you drink? Please be honest with me, because obviously we want to support you as an individual around this role, but obviously there's a safeguarding factor as well with you and your patients and your staff and your colleagues in a particular area. So again, you've always got to have that in the back of your mind when you're speaking to an individual about that. So I think also there's that piece as a manager, protecting yourself, protecting the organisation, and protecting the individual, just in case someone is coming in under the influence of alcohol in the morning, just to be aware that you may need to support them and actually seek further support through human resources, occupational health, and obviously any other teams that support around safeguarding. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so we've touched upon a couple of examples, and I just want to wrap up here with a couple of things what we're looking out for. So the challenges that you may find as managers is handling emotional reactions without losing focus. Again, potentially you're involved with these changes. You're getting lack of communication potentially from senior managers, etc. The communication channels are not always the greatest, so you need to handle the emotions as well as possible, and try not to take anything personally as well. If people do come to you and they're emotional, it may be just because they are feeling very emotional about it, so don't take that personally as a manager. Balancing honesty and empathy as well, really important. As I say, that last example could be an example that you want to support the individual. However, there's an element of risk to their job and working with patients and the public as well. So again, be honest, be empathetic, and offer to support that individual. As a manager, so important to stay objective when tensions rise. So if people are saying, well, I don't know if I want to be here tomorrow in this current role, or I'm being changed, put into another role, you still need to say it's business as usual. We're all trying to be there. If you want to come and see me on a one-to-one basis, please do. There is going to be resistance and denial, a bit like the last, why am I doing this job at the moment? It's not for me. You got to look at the bigger picture. With the individual, you need to be showing the right attitude, especially if a role's at risk, because they're probably going through an internal relocation or placement interviews as well. So it's important to, keep that kind of keep the momentum going and keep the morale high in the team, and that's your job as a manager. Protecting trust while we tackle the problem. Again, don't share any information that doesn't need to be shared for that individual, so keep it to yourself. Only if there's a security safeguarding issue or risk to others, you need to escalate, but inform that individual as well if you're speaking to them. And following up, it's really, really positive if you say, look, I'll put some time, 10 minutes, go for coffee, go for a walk with a colleague, tell them to rest, and just follow up with them in a week or 2 weeks time, see how they are. It does nothing, and it builds that rapport with you as a manager, those skills, those learning skills. As managers, I think we do want to see the best in individuals, and it's so important to build that rapport. So again, a few tips here. James is going to go on to what we have to offer within the Healthy Workplaces, Healthy Conversation Skills for Managers. If you want to join, he'll just go on to what we have to offer now, and then we'll be closing the session. Go, James. Thank you.
Yes, like I said, like we spoke about throughout the session, what Stu's gone through. He's only gone into it briefly, but Healthy Workplaces offers training regarding MEC, which focuses heavily on managers and team leaders, support you to have healthy conversations with your staff. So the training's aimed at managing team leaders to have them conversations, support members to make healthier lifestyle choices and changes. Our workshop lasts up to around 3 hours to deliver it online face-to-face, and learners, when you do join, you'll develop practical skills to support your team on subject matters. And again, you don't have to be an expert on that subject matter regarding physical activity or mental well-being. It's just giving you that support and confidence to have them healthier conversations with your staff. And the next slide, please. So our next course dates are there. So we've got one on the Wednesday, 22nd of October, one Wednesday, the 12th of November, and the other one, which is Tuesday, the 9th of December. So this training is via Microsoft Teams, and the price is there per person. We can also deliver the training in person, so we can come in. Some organisations prefer us to come in and do it to groups, and that's perfectly fine. What we will do is we'll send over after this a link to our contact page where you can drop us an email regarding any training inquiries you have, and we'll get back to you. I'm guessing this training is being shared so people can follow this link as well if needs be. So if you do go into this link here, you'll be able to book onto our next free training programs regarding healthy conversation skills for managers. Thank you. Cheers, Charlotte.
Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you, James. Thank you, Stuart. That was a fantastic presentation, looking at some tips around taking care, looking after your team, some really practical things that you can do in terms of having those healthy conversations, and also thinking about how you can look after the whole team as well as those individuals. We'll be sharing, as James said, we'll be sharing all of the links and guidance and resources from today after the session with all the delegates. You'll be able to access that. But it's really thinking about what can you do to look after your team? What can you think about? How can you take back what you've heard today back to your team to have that conversation, so that you can really support them throughout these difficult, turbulent times at the moment. There's lots of change, there's lots of pressures that we face as leaders and managers. We really need to think about how we're taking care of individuals within our teams and the whole team collectively. So we've got a full comprehensive toolkit for you following the session today. So now we're moving on to our second masterclass as part of this conference. So we'll be looking at the masterclass on looking after you as a manager, and I'm joined by my colleague Mariam. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. You might have heard my name being called or heard from me in the back as I've been helping with the tech, and I'm really glad to be here today to co-deliver this session with you.
Thank you, Mariam. So our masterclass will focus on looking after you as a manager, as Alison Shirley touched on at the very beginning. Very, very quickly become the last thing on your priority list, thinking about you as a manager. And so in terms of taking care of you, we're all in the business of keeping people well, leading people at work. And we have to do that alongside all of the challenges that we face, the current shifts in health and social care, which directly affect our work and personal lives. And being a leader can actually be quite lonely. It can be difficult, overwhelming at times, and especially currently for many of us. So it's now more important than ever to prioritise your own health and well-being for the benefit of yourself, your family, friends, your team, and your organisation. We won't just be talking you through talking at you today. We're going to be getting you to engage with some practical exercises that you can incorporate into your everyday routine to have a healthier, happier working day every day. So before we start, this is really important, and for me this has been the most important slide, because this allows you to take some time out for your health and well-being. As a leader, as I said, it's very easy to forget lunch, or quickly I just need to do these emails, and then you suddenly realise you've worked a couple of hours overtime. You really need to think about yourself. So I just want to take a moment for you to just think about and reflect on the last time that you felt at ease. Maybe ask yourself when there was the last time you truly felt well, and when was the last time that you properly breathed? When did you have some nice deep breaths, some easy breaths. And just thinking about that, you might suddenly have that realization that it's been a while since you've truly felt full of health, vitality and energy. And so to help you prioritize your own well-being, we're going to take a moment now to clear that mental clutter, to take some breaths and actually set an intention. We know we've all had the saying that you need to put your own oxygen mask on first on an aeroplane in order to help other people. But very often in the busyness of the work that we do, we forget that. And so that analogy, we need to do exactly the same for you as leaders and managers now to make sure that you're prioritizing your own well-being. You're investing that time every day to keep yourselves well and be able to effectively lead others. We know that evidence shows us that even a minute of intentional breathing can regulate your nervous system. So we're all going to practice that now if you're okay and safe to. I'd like you to get nice and comfortable in your chair, whether you're sitting in a nice comfortable position, sitting position, with your trying to place your feet flat on the floor. And if you can rest your palms gently, resting them on your knees. So making any last adjustments, and I'd like you to just take a moment to close your eyes down now. And just very gently bringing your attention to the breath. Just taking some nice, deep, easy breaths in and out through the nose. Just focusing on the rise and fall of the chest and abdomen as you breathe in and breathe out. Just allowing the outside world to just melt away. Knowing that there's nowhere else you need to be. Nothing else you need to do. Just listening to the sound of my voice as you concentrate on your breathing, making each breath more deeper, slower, gentler. And just noticing those thoughts beginning to settle. Allow the body to just relax, releasing any tension it might have been holding on to. And just take a moment here to set an intention for you, for your well-being. Perhaps give yourself permission to take care of yourself. Set an intention about what you can do each day. This could include taking a few breaths, making sure you take a break, speaking to peers, accessing support, going for a walk. Whatever it may be, just remember when you do this, you are doing the most important thing. Just taking one more last breath now. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes, return back to the room. Brilliant. Hopefully you're feeling good, feeling the difference in your mind and body and noticing how quickly you can regulate, and throughout these difficult, pressured times, how simple it might be of just taking that intentional moment. Brilliant. I can see everybody's been enjoying that, which is fantastic. So now we're feeling more settled. I'd like to introduce you, or reintroduce many of you, I'm sure, to the 5 ways of wellbeing. So the 5 ways of wellbeing was shared as part of NHS England's framework model for wellbeing, as well as the Leaders Programme. And this allows us to just think about all elements of our well-being to make sure that we're well and healthy at work. So they include connecting, being active, taking notice, learning and giving to others. The full documentation and links will be in our toolkit after the session, but today we're going to focus on taking notice, so particularly on that mindset, that purposefulness, so that we can become more aware and think about how we can apply this in our everyday. So I'll hand over to Mariam to talk us through the next slide.
Thank you, Charlotte, and thanks for the breathing exercise. We've had some comments in the chat, and we saw lots of hearts and claps, and I know it helped me, especially with being busy with all the tech for this event. So let's get to it. Let's take a moment now to reflect on our busyness at work. You may recognise this graph here. It's known as a stress curve. I want you to have a think about where you are on this stress curve. For most people, on a scale from utterly bored to feeling rather burnt out, our ideal performance level lies somewhere in the middle, as we see here. This is where we feel most fulfilled by our challenges. It's our ideal zone. When we're in our ideal zone, we are busy, but it's at an intermediate level of demands and pressure that allows us to feel productive and not overwhelmed. Now, in the interest of time, just having a look, I did have a mentee planned, but I think we'll skip that. And I just want you to have a think about on this curve where you might be. And for those who think they may be on the lower to mid end, you might want to think about what you can do to stretch yourself so you can be in your ideal zone. So consider how to innovate or improve your current performance. Think about what opportunities there are to develop. That could be personally, that could support you professionally. It could be just something in your professional career. And also, if you think that actually you're doing pretty well, how are you sharing your learning and that best practice? How can you support others? But if you're on the other side, so if you're slipping over that hump towards the stress, which that sort of quadrant is called the zone of delusion, you may regularly be feeling anxious, tired, panicked, overwhelmed. If this sounds like you need to immediately lessen your workload, which sounds easier said than done, I know, but you need to consider this to avoid burning out, and also think about the impact on your well-being. If left, the likelihood of slipping all the way to exhaustion is quite high under feelings like this, and your performance will be impaired, and it could affect your mental health, and it's likely going to affect the team too. So for those who feel they might already be here or are going towards it, reach out to someone if you haven't already, if you're not sure what to do, if you're not sure where to go. A lot of us are really lucky to have wellbeing champions or a wellbeing lead, a mental health first aider, even a trusted colleague or your line manager, just someone to talk to think about how to create a plan to move back towards that healthy productivity and being back into that ideal zone. Thanks, Charlotte.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mariam. So in terms of that curve, I find that really helpful as, again, a way to have a self-assessment of where you are. And again, we're going to be sharing it as part of the toolkit. Now we're just moving on. So in the next few slides, we're going to delve a little bit deeper into what influences this kind of busyness and stress that many of us feel, and what influences maybe our busyness mindset. The concept of nature versus nurture is really helpful to gain that greater awareness, to understand what's going on for us, so that we become more aware and then can think about ways in which we can change our approaches. So in terms of both of those elements, nature versus nurture, affect our well-being and affect our behaviours and our motivations in different ways. So nurture, we know that neuroscience research shows that the brain's reward system is actually hardwired to seek stimulation through completing tasks. That stimulation releases dopamine, which creates an addictive cycle to busyness. And we can often chase the need to stay in a busy state, focusing on doing more and more, and neglecting our time to reflect, or neglecting actually taking care of ourselves. Alongside that nature side, that brain response, that chemical response, there is also our societal, cultural norms that encourage us to stay busy. So from a young age, we learn that busy equates to being successful in many ways. However, that belief is misleading, and it can often as Marion talked about, is that kind of burnout stages. So together, those forces make it very easy for us to forget about our own well-being, like mentally, physically, emotionally, socially. So being aware of them helps us to become more mindful of their effects, understand where we currently are, to then look at where we'd like to be. And then we can look at how to get there. So again, it's important to engage in that self-reflection today of is nature and nurture kind of influencing my behaviors? Do I have that busy mindset? Is it affecting my well-being and the well-being of the team? Again, we've got some mentees that we shared, haven't we, Mariam? Did we want to talk this through, just looking at time today?
I think we've got probably time for one or two of them, Charlotte. Shall we do the first one and the second one, or what do you think?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Jem. Sorry, guys. The Teams didn't allow us to use the full Mentee functionality, so my lovely colleague Jem has roped in and is supporting us.
There we go. So if everybody can use the QR code shown on this screen and just type in their response to what messages about busyness that you think might have been internalized or expressed to others. So if you're able to do that, it'd be really good to have that self-reflection today. So we're doing these practical things right now so that you'll be able to do them again in those busy times when you find yourself maybe getting towards the end of that stress curve, maybe feeling that stress, or maybe you're in different places of it. But what we've experienced with managers and leaders that have come to us, it's really been around that stress. So we've got some responses coming up here. I see one that says, if you're not busy, you are not working. Accepted being busy, it denotes success. It's expected. There's a difference between feeling busy and working at capacity. Exhaustion, if I'm not busy, I'm lazy or not fulfilling my role. We kind of need to be busy to show you're effective. Again, so many of you are experiencing that kind of driver behind the behavior to be more and more busier and busier, and feeling that pressure to that it's expected to always be on, to always be working. It's really helpful to think about and to see that you're not alone in that challenge. You're not alone in that feeling, and you can see everyone's responses coming up on the screen. I just wondered if you had anything to add to that, Mariam, at all.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting reading through these when you sort of read through them and you think, actually, I've been there before. And it's more about recognizing that you're there and sort of telling yourself, what are you going to do about it? Or are you accepting this? Because how is that going to affect you going forward? So what I wanted us to do is just think about on the next mentee, really this busyness that we're feeling, is it real or is it perceived? Because that's sort of an exercise that I took on myself when I was thinking about what I've been doing and how I'm feeling. So if you all just stay on Mentee, so if it's the same QR code, the same code, and have a think about, is your busyness real or perceived? So when I asked this to myself, I reflected back on the nature versus nurture, which Charlotte just shared. And from a nature perspective, I do have quieter days at work, which leave me feeling a little flat and unfulfilled. So I sort of thought this is likely because that dopamine hasn't been released in the same way. And so perhaps maybe I'm busying myself or trying to feel busier. So I feel happier that I've done more. But is that real? Probably not. And from a nurture perspective, if someone asks me, oh, what are you working on? How's your week been? I tend to rack off all the things I've been doing rather than saying, I had this really, just focusing on something that went really well or something that I'm really excited to be working on. I try to sort of list off all the things that I'm doing. And it's for a lot of the reasons that we've just seen on screen. It's because I feel like I should be being kept busy and I don't want people to think that I'm not busy, because that might be seen like I'm not working or I'm not doing anything. And that's wrong, because that's not why they were asking me how things are being. They're just genuinely interested in how I am and what's been happening in my world. So again, from that perspective, that's a mindset that I need to change. And I'm trying to recognize when I do this to myself, because I certainly wouldn't judge others against this mindset. So I'm doing it to myself. So for me, I'd answer perceived. And since I answered perceived, I think about that stress curve again and think about where I would be along that stress curve, because it would be different if my stress and my work, my busyness isn't that in that real state, it's more in my mind. But if you answered real, I feel like you should be thinking about what is keeping you busy, and think about you. It's really easy to say, well, it's work, but what is it in that work? Break it down. What parts of that work is what's taking up a lot of your time, and how will you offload some of this? What can you do about it? What is in your gift to affect that for yourself? Because you need to be that person to do it. So even right at the beginning, when we listened to James and Stuart and they were talking about you have your own answers, how are you going to answer this for yourself? Use those open questions. Think like you have all the possibilities in the world, and then bring it back down. And also consider what impact that busyness is having on your well-being. It is, you just don't bring it to the fore. So I will bring the slides back up, but it's really interesting to see that 80% feel like their busyness is mostly real. That's quite a lot, and I feel like we should all be thinking about what we're doing about that busyness, and hopefully we'll have some things in place that you can take away with you to think about it. Just give me a second as the slides come back up.
Thank you, Mariam. And it's that question is really interesting for me in my capacity of taking care of staff wellbeing. We have 7,500 members of staff in Leicestershire Partnership Trust, and I'm the health and wellbeing lead. And so there is a lot of queries, a lot of questions, a lot of asks from me. And when I'd first done that kind of exercise of is it real or perceived, I had felt it was real. In terms of that busyness. And then I took a step back and recognised that I was holding myself solely responsible for taking care of that many people, and not linking into looking at what I can practically do in the time that I had, where I can delegate, where I can access support from, where I can look at different ways of doing things, as well as where can I actually look at sharing that with my leaders and managers, so that we can understand the ask and look at resource allocation, which helped me then see that some of that busyness was actually perceived, and my kind of feeling that I needed to do everything and be able to meet everybody's needs. I don't know if anybody else feels like that, but it was a really good question to come back to. So I would encourage everybody to come back to that. But as Mariam said, that kind of the real impact of being busy has so many effects, doesn't it, Mariam?
Yeah, it does. And I just wanted to say that even if you think you're off the hook because actually your busyness was perceived and you were one of those 30% who hit perceived, it still can have a very real impact on yourself. And I'm going to go really quickly because I'm conscious of the time. But the brain's prefrontal cortex is what's responsible for the planning and decision making, and it can become overloaded, leading to decision fatigue and impaired focus. So that's something we need to think about. And that chronic busyness activates the amygdala, which I'm sure we've heard of. There's a movie about it and it's massive. But what it is the brain's major processing center for emotion, including fear. So this triggers the stress response, even when no real threat exists. And the constant stimulation can lead to you relying on short-term gratification, with the brain more and more seeking instant rewards rather than deep, meaningful work. So it's still a worry. And then, of course, there is a physical response from all of this. It's all tied in, where the body releases cortisol and adrenaline, which are helpful in short bursts, but harmful when prolonged and can lead to fatigue, anxiety, and burnout. So it's the fight or flight response, which remains active, resulting in an increased heart rate, shallow breathing, and muscle tension. We've heard that unclench your jaw, raise your eyebrows. And this overactivity can cause sleep disruptions by suppressing melatonin production, which is an important sleep hormone, making it difficult to wind down and achieve a restful night, which we have all come into work before and said, I've not had brilliant sleep. And it has an effect on us, on our work day, and the way we interact with one another. So it's all linked, and it's all very important.
Thank you, Mariam. And those effects can be create long-term damage as well. We have prolonged periods of that high anxiety, high stress. It can have long-term effects mentally and physically. So it's really important that we take some time each day to think about our own health and well-being. And this is where we come to kind of flipping the switch and we're looking at some practical ways to manage your time, energy levels, trying to look at that busyness. If it is real, what can we do about that? What can we do to you do as a leader, as a manager, to take care of yourself, take care of your team, and be well. So instead of wearing the busyness as a badge of honour, as I said, I definitely did, we really want to shift that focus to intentional action, intentional, conscious ways of working. Sometimes we can just be busy just for the sake of busy, or are we actually utilising all of the systems around us, all of the resources and people around us? And there's a couple of ways we can reframe what we say of I'm so busy to try saying I'm focusing on what truly matters. It's a really helpful a change of phrasing to be able to, it reprograms your mind, and that in turn will reprogram and change your behavior. There's other things around practicing gratitude for the progress that you're making, rather than looking at and kind of analysing and maybe being critical of the sheer number of tasks completed. So over our presentation today, what we've tried to do is really understand the psychological and physiological roots of busyness. And from that, we can begin to reframe our mindset and prioritise meaningful activities and embrace stillness without guilt. And I've placed it on the screen as ABC, so it's nice and easy to remember. This is again in the toolkit. We're going to be going through it quite quickly today, but it's something that you can come back to, and we have a self-assessment, a RAG-rated self-assessment. So the first part of this is being purposeful and well at work would be to become aware. So having that check-in, thinking about where you are on that RAG rating. Are you well and coping? Are you struggling to cope? Are you not coping? Do you need support? Do you need to access maybe peer support, speak to a manager, speak to external organisation, access that support? And also, if you're struggling to cope, what usually helps you? And as well as that, if you're in the green zone, think about, what do I do that keeps me well? What can I do more of? How can I maintain those healthy habits and behaviours? And then for B, it's coming back to our body. So thinking about what we did earlier in terms of just intentional breaths, simple things like learning to say no. And when we have kind of stress responses, recognizing we can have a pause and look at how we can actually prioritize our tasks, as well as making sure we're taking care of our physical body. So making sure we're taking breaks, resting, refueling, rehydrating, and being a role model for our team by taking care of yourself. There are so many benefits of doing that, and there's so much evidence and research out there that proves managers and leaders prioritize their own well-being, their teams, their staff follow suit. There's improvement in patient care, reduction in absenteeism, reduction in patient safety incidents, and so on, and it increased efficiency. As well as conscious working for C, this is the one I really like because it allows us to become really aware of what's happening when we feel well, thinking about working consciously rather than being busy. And similarly to how I shared, calculating what you can do so we can recondition the mind and nervous system, and using things like the Eisenhower grid matrix showed on the screen, where we can look at the urgent and important tasks and decide reasonably what can we do, decide, delegate and delete, so that we can prioritize those high impact activities, as well as being able to ensure that we stay well at work. And so this is coming to the end of our masterclass now. This is our final slide, and this is the practical side. So applying what you've learned, so acting now. So utilising these tools shared and focusing on those benefits. By applying the learning, you can receive a return on that investment in your own well-being and that of your teams. And you can take all of the self-assessments, the stress curve that we've shared today, that RAG-rated self-assessment, the breathing, back to your teams to really apply what you're learning, as well as thinking about making a personal promise. What can you do each day to take care of you? What intention, you set an intention earlier, what was it? We really encourage you to write this down so you build those healthy habits and make them a non-negotiable. So it's not a thing I'd like to do, it's a thing I have to do. As well as there's further support, as we've said, in the toolkit to help you take care of you and your team. Mariam, did you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Charlotte. I just wanted to really, really quickly just urge people to just write down somewhere what your promise to yourself will be and how you're going to apply the learning today. So if you've got a piece of paper near you, or open a draft email, just write it down so you can come back and have a look at it at a later date.
Absolutely. And Mariam also shared that's on the screen, the quote, "The world isn't as it is as we are." So thinking about that for you and taking that away. Brilliant. So now we're going to practice what we preach and take a short break, a 5-minute break, to take some time for self-care, those healthy habits. So you can please take a moment to review the information on the slide, and we'll be back in 5 minutes' time. Thank you so much. So welcome back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed your short break and feeling refreshed and ready for our final masterclass this morning. So this will be with our NHS Talking Therapies colleagues, where they'll be sharing their masterclass on difficult conversations and employment support. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Laura and AJ. Thank you.
Charlotte. Fabulous. So you're driving the slides, aren't you? So welcome. We are Laura and AJ, and we are from NHS Talking Therapies. For anyone that doesn't know what that is, we provide mental health support for common mental health difficulties like anxiety and depression, and we are the national NHS Talking Therapies service for Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. I'm Laura Birmingham. I'm the clinical lead for Talking Therapies. AJ, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Laura. Yep, so AJ Masuria, I'm the Senior Employment Advisor for our Employment Support Service that sits comfortably alongside treatment for our patients.
Excellent, fab. And the plan for us today is to cover areas contributing to work-related stress, absenteeism and presenteeism, managing challenging conversations, and then how to manage worries and kind of the anxiety that comes along with those turbulent times and those challenging conversations.
Okay, so let's just define for a moment what we mean by difficult conversations. So a quote from ACAS, which we think fits really well, is a conversation where you've got to manage both the emotions and the information in a sensitive way. So the landscape of today, from everything that we've talked about in terms of difficult conversations as managers, leaders, or whatever your title may be, there's a responsibility here. But there's a key part which we must address, and as a talking therapy service, it's about the psychological impact on you as an individual trying to manage that conversation two ways, both from the onset and the impact or the outcome of that conversation. And that's what we mean by highlighting the emotional impact of that conversation as well. So in terms of areas that can contribute to work-related stress, and stress I think is something really important to note, whereby stress is that thing that we commonly kind of term, it's that familiar term where we talk about that because it's something that seems to be temporary. But stress is also important as a normalized term, a normalized language, because that's the thing that we know about. But when does it turn into something more, for example? And in the context of talking therapies, it's about, again, anxiety, depression, for example, as well. And we'll touch upon some of those bits as we go through our presentation, but bringing it back to something that the health and safety executive channels on as well, and has alluded over a period of time, there are 6 main areas that can lead to work-related stress if not managed properly. And we can see these on the screen, from demands right down to change effectively. Each element can have a really different impact on the individual's ability to complete their duties due to the level of resilience. And that resilience, that term, is often cultured through that person's experience of managing such events throughout their career journey or their life events as well. So it's a combination of both. Stress related to change can often be related to organizational change, as well as job insecurity or fear of redundancy, significant changes to one's employment. And conversations relating to each of these areas can be really difficult because the individual has a different impact on them compared to their colleagues, for example. So when we're talking about the impact, it's really important to consider as well the individuality that the discussion or the conversation may create as well. And that's because, again, there's work and life factors involved for that individual. There's considerations which may be different, again, as a team ethic as well. So it's really important to focus on the role we play when we deliver such conversations to the individual as well. So just touching on to 2 familiar terms as well. So absenteeism. So this is when sometimes it can be difficult to have that conversation. And again, the context of that Monday morning, we know what we've got to do. We've got to have that challenging or difficult conversation, but it may feel overwhelming. The Friday night be that feeling of dread. The Saturday may be, again, I suppose, a difficult day. Saturday night may be even more difficult, and a sleepless night because of the worry about how am I going to tackle this conversation? What's the outcome going to be? So there's an overwhelming sense of how is it going to go? As a result, we may experience thoughts such as, I don't want to have this conversation, it's too overwhelming, or I can't cope. Now, due to these thoughts and these behaviors, again, sometimes we may experience the physical symptoms of fight or flight response, such as feeling tense, restless, difficulty concentrating, or feeling sick. Again, that gut churning sensation. And this can lead to sickness absence, as it may be easier to avoid the situation rather than facing it in the short term. And we get that sense of relief that we think, you know what, if I've avoided it, it's gone effectively. Um, and that again is driven by that desire to not face a difficult situation, but in the long term, that can also create more anxiety, because the more we avoid a situation, it's not going to go away. So the task is still there. So on the screen, what we've actually got is a presentation in CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy terms as well, in terms of the vicious cycle. So we've got thoughts on the screen as well. These are some very normal thoughts. Don't want to have the conversation, too overwhelming, can't cope. What do we do? What are our behaviors as a result of that? Avoidance. We cancel that meeting, or we call in sick because it's easier. We've got out of the situation. Physical feelings. How does it feel in the body, regardless of the worry in the mind as well? So all of those common sensations, which can be all or some as well for individuals. And the mood or the emotions as well. So feeling anxious, the element of stress, overwhelmed, or feeling absolutely flat, demotivated as well. You will notice on the screen the arrows, so there's no starting point that's common for one individual. It can start with again, the sense of, I have to avoid this. It can start with the thoughts, but again, everything impacts each other. So what we think often affects what we do, as well as the emotions and therefore as well. So there's a vicious cycle that goes on. And absenteeism is so important to mention because it's a problem. When we cancel that event, the conversation still must go on.
Excellent point, and a really natural response for us to kind of avoid and hide when we're feeling that anxious. But sometimes what will happen is presenteeism instead. So kind of when anxiety is with us, but we're not avoiding. So if we think about absenteeism is not kind of the only response. So when we are looking at presenteeism, it could be a result of that kind of necessity to kind of work. So what we were speaking about before is kind of that pressure to be busy. So that can then often lead to us to be quite distracted. So we might be kind of worried, we might be there but not there. So we're constantly thinking about the difficult conversation, the kind of the situation that we're in, rather than kind of being in the moment, which will have an impact on our productivity levels and our mental health kind of as a result of that. And it will lead in and become quite overwhelming with that combination of maybe what's going on at work, but also thinking about people have things going on at home as well, which might kind of link in and add to that. And both absenteeism and presenteeism can be a major impact on the economy. So with the cost of mental health being an estimated £42 billion a year, with half of that being due to presenteeism, people show up to work, but we're not fully there in the moment. And what you'll see with the cycle is a slightly different way that that would present. So you might notice that someone's kind of in their own head, or you might notice your own worry. So what if this, what if that, if I do this, then that's going to happen. I can't cope, I should be working. Then that's going to lead us to kind of be distracted in the workplace. Kind of it might pull us away from kind of our normal level of performance. We might be worrying, which is a behavior. The more we worry, the more we feed it. And then that can lead to a different feeling of anxiety within our body. You might notice a lot of headaches, tension, kind of difficulty concentrating, those heart palpitations, that dread in your stomach, maybe feeling sick. And then that's often lead to those kind of emotions around anxiety, stress, feeling overwhelmed and low mood, like we mentioned before. And as AJ was saying, these all interlink with each other, but it doesn't have a starting point. It depends on the person that's in front of you and how that might present. You're on mute, AJ, sorry.
Thank you, Laura. So again, let's just take a few moments to look at how we can look at practical ways to manage a challenging conversation as well. And some efficacy here. Again, I'm going to refer to ACAS principles because there's some great downloadable guides that you can refer to as well. And some of these principles are taken from there. But again, make these unique to yourself because there's not a one size fits all for everybody. But some of the key things to focus on as well is if you're the best person, first and foremostly, to have that conversation with the individual or the group. Is support needed from additional person? And that could be, for example, from a senior manager, for example, from a HR presentation effectively as well, or somebody else as well that's better placed to have the conversation. Planning. And that's the right time effectively. That's really key. So if it's a team meeting to deliver a group message, that may be a best fit for one challenging conversation or topic. Alternatively, it could be the opposite extreme. It could be the one-to-one, which is a protected psychological safe space to talk about things and gain feedback and then take action points as well. It could, however, be an ad hoc email. Can I have a quick chat with you about X, Y, and Z? An ad hoc phone call, for example. But assessing timing is key effectively so that we're not, again, trying to pick that moment in the day when it's really hectic and busy on both parts as well. Maintaining control of the situation. Sorry, just going back to, I guess, preparation as well. Really important as well to get the facts before we go into a conversation. So be aware of policies, and these are workplace policies. Also reflect on what you know of the individual as well. So any personal characteristics, dynamics, how they've tackled or accepted or resisted kind of conversation in the past, because that can help us to fine tune the communication and the conversation as well. And that leads us on to maintaining control of the situation because there may be times when we prepare, but the reaction on the outcome isn't something we feel we can deal with in that moment. So again, it comes back to informing line management or senior management of the steps you intend to take before we have that conversation can also then help you to discuss any unexpected outcomes. Communication, which I've touched upon as well, there's a fine balance of communication skills that will be needed when we're talking about difficult conversations, regardless of the topic. And that will be an expectation whereby we'd need to adapt what we know of that individual as well. So what we mean by that is your approach of communicating, for example, as we've heard this morning, questioning skills. Is there a combination of open, closed, probing questions that can help the conversation move forward, flow, and gain input or gain just information about where we stand with that situation? Sometimes it's always good to sit with silence. It's really uncomfortable, but when we expect some information from the receiving party as well, giving that time to actually then respond. And it's that uncomfortable situation where if no one says anything, someone feels that they've got to say something. So sitting with silence can be really powerful in a conversation when we don't want to put forward an opinion or something else which may lead off the question that we're trying to ask as well. Active listening is really key. So sometimes when we're having challenging conversations, going into listen rather than respond is really important. So we don't appear defensive or again go off on a different tangent as well. Tone and facial expressions, really, really important as well. So how we respond or react, should we say, there's a visual. If we're doing things in person or in video, like you can see now as well, facial expressions give a lot away about how we may perceive information that's coming to us as well. And it may create the right or the wrong kind of interpretation as well. So all of these elements can influence your ability to take control of the discussion. And also don't forget your self-belief in your ability to handle that conversation and complete the task. It's really, really important. Okay.
Yes, fabulous. Excellent. So what we really want to keep in mind is that through turbulent times, when there's lots of change, when we are faced with difficult conversations, often we are full of stress and anxiety, which means that maybe that empathy that we strive for with that Brené Brown clip there goes out the window. So what we want to do is kind of remind ourselves that, change, that sense of uncertainty really does lead us to kind of be in that anxious place. So we want to kind of remind ourselves to kind of use all of those tips that Charlotte gave us and just remind ourselves that often when people are anxious, they're looking for control, they're looking for some certainty. And that might be why we notice that kind of increase in kind of our direct line kind of reportees coming to us asking for solutions, they're asking for guidance, they're asking for direction because they're feeling uncertain, they're feeling anxious, they're feeling out of control. So what we want to do is kind of remind ourselves to kind of approach that situation using kind of some of those active listening tools and techniques that we have probably bumped into over the course of our work. So thinking about kind of the SHUSH acronym from kind of Samaritans, kind of really using those active listening skills to kind of be quiet, be present, and kind of sit with the silence, like AJ was saying, and keep the judgment out of that situation. And coming at a conversation with that kind of assertive communication can be really helpful. So we want to kind of think about how do we communicate when we're feeling anxious and out of control. So it can be quite kind of normal when we're dealing with conflict and kind of faced with those difficult situations to maybe kind of struggle with being assertive in those moments. So just kind of check in with yourself and ask yourself, are we communicating in an open, honest, and positive manner that respects both yourself and the other person? And it will be how you deal with those situations and just kind of trying to remind ourselves what kinds of communication is most helpful in that moment. You move on to the next slide for me, AJ.
Thanks, Laura. So if we just focus on, again, everything that we've talked about is, again, an approach regarding the actual conversation. And we've talked about, again, handling ourselves and managing our intrinsic kind of emotions and our behaviors as well as our spoken and verbal communication as well. But as we've mentioned and touched upon, sometimes those conversations may not go or end up in the direction that we anticipated, regardless of wanted as well. So it's important, and I know other people have mentioned these as well, so I guess it's reinforcement as well. So in-work support, and that ranges from employee assistance programs. And it's really important to spend a few moments just to kind of realize and refresh ourselves on what's available internally, because we find from patients that we support as well, that in the heat of the moment, when we're actually trying to deal with a situation, we've never used or actually read upon what's available in the organization. So we forget what's available. And then at that heat of the moment, time when we do need that support, we're oblivious, but we don't have the resilience to kind of reach out and try and find out what's there. So a signpost internally to modes of support, employee assistance programs, they do have quite commonly as well counselling approaches, and it's short term effectively as a talking point to kind of approach and get things off your chest as well. Occupational health, there can be again a great conversation that's had there regarding what adjustments could be made in a situation. Wellbeing projects. Now, we'd like to think that well-being is on the agenda, not just once in a year or again at a certain point in the year when there's a national kind of a project as well, but it's the focus constantly 365 days a year. So there could be well-being projects that are there on intranets or focus groups. It's being aware of those and tapping into those as well. Reasonable adjustments, again, usually comes from occupational health, but don't have to rely on occupational health. It's what's reasonable for that individual to move forwards from that difficult conversation that you're trying to have as well. And counselling, as we've touched on as well from the EAP program, but counselling can be internal. There could also be a signpost to, again, and taking the context out of just counselling, but talking therapies, which we'll come on to again a bit later on as well.
So when we're faced with those difficult conversations, it's important to remember kind of our own rights in that conversation, so that we remind ourselves to approach that situation with that assertive communication style. So everyone is feeling heard and kind of able to have that open, respectful conversation. So it's about reminding ourselves that everyone has the right to have and be treated with dignity and self-respect, say no without feeling guilty, express their feelings, ask for help directly without feeling shamed, to feel self-confident, to make mistakes, to change their mind, and to be able to set priorities and to be listened to and taken seriously. And it's really important to kind of remember that in those periods of conflict or difficult situations. Next slide, please. So to ensure that we are coming at a situation with assertiveness, it will be about kind of waiting until both parties are calm, an agreed time. Like what AJ was saying, it's about kind of making sure that it's the right space and the right time to have that conversation. Be specific, express your feelings, use I statements, lower the volume, try to avoid blame at all times, give time and listen to the other person, be respectful, never make threats, try not to mind read or predict what they're going to say or how they're going to respond. No games. We wouldn't suggest holding hands in a workplace environment. This is also content that we would use when we're thinking about assertive communication in other situations as well. Use timeouts if you need to. So kind of feel free to say, you know, we need to take some time, set another time to kind of come back to that conversation. Avoid overgeneralizing, focus on compromise, and focus on solutions. Next slide, please. So like what we were mentioning, at these times of turbulence, we often are faced with a lot of uncertainty and feeling out of control. So we often, when we're feeling anxious, have this kind of intolerance to uncertainty. So if you think about it like an allergy, some of us really like uncertainty and unpredictability, and other people really like a lot of certainty and a lot of control. So we're all on a different part of that continuum, and some people face challenges and kind of uncertainty in a positive way. other people might see that quite threatening in that period of time. So it's about reminding yourself that everyone's an individual. They'll be coming at that situation in different situations. And uncertainty is unavoidable. So we can't always be 100% sure of what's going to happen next, but people will be asking for that in those situations when they're feeling anxious. People vary in their ability. It's flicked on, sorry. So people will vary in their ability to tolerate, like we mentioned. We might avoid anxiety by using strategies to reduce that. So asking managers to tell me what I should do next and what we should do. It can help to empower that individual to find their own solutions and kind of come at that from their own perspective and kind of giving them back that feeling. Intolerance of uncertainty can lead to excessive planning, preparation, checking, and reassurance seeking. So you might notice that people are coming to you more often. There will be that kind of need for a plan and a lot of prep. So that can feed to that sense of busyness that we were talking about before, as kind of you might notice that people are doing a lot of that behind the scenes. Next slide, please. So when we're faced with uncertainty and anxiety, worry is a really natural place for us to be. We all worry if we're faced with something that is difficult and we kind of feel like there's no solution, or we're not sure what that solution is. So when we're thinking about worry, we want to kind of try and be in the moment as much as we possibly can. So it can help to write those worries down, get them out of your head, offload them so that you can get yourself a bit of distance between what's happening internally and what the actual situation is. So we want to know, what is the worry that you've got at the moment? Is it everything lumped into one? Is it finding new work? Is it kind of financial concerns? Is it kind of having a difficult conversation on the horizon and thinking of all the possible ways that that could go? So we want to think about, is it a practical problem that you've got, or is it a hypothetical problem? So a practical problem is one that has a solution. It's one that you know kind of what the problem is and has kind of a tangible action, whereas a hypothetical worry will be something that we're worrying about that may or may not happen in a time frame. So it might be kind of what's going to happen in 5 years' time, kind of things that you might not have any control over. It can take a little bit of time to figure out, is this a practical problem or not? But the best question to ask yourself, is there something I can do about this right now? If you can, practical problem. If not, hypothetical. Next slide, please. So if we're faced with practical problems, so practical worries, there's something that you can do about it, but you're not really sure what that is right now, then problem solving can be a really helpful technique to kind of help you get you back on track. So it's about getting a piece of paper and identifying what the actual problem is. So we need to kind of think about SMART goals when we're thinking about what that problem is. Kind of, you know, what is the difficulty that you're faced with at this moment in time? Write down as many possible solutions as you possibly can, because it helps you get creative. So instead of getting stuck into that, I could do this, no, I can't, or I could do that, no, I can't, and we're kind of bounced about between that rock and a hard place. It's about opening up and being as ridiculous as possible with those solutions, because it gets the creative juices flowing and gets you thinking. Then we want to think about the kind of the strengths and weaknesses of those options. And then when we've thought about the kind of the strengths and weaknesses of those solutions, which is the kind of the best solution for you at this moment in time. So it doesn't have to be necessarily the best on paper. It might be the one that you've got resource for. It might be the one that's most helpful at this time. And just reminding yourself that you can come back to those other solutions. You can trial and error some of those things. It doesn't have to be that we've picked the perfect solution at that period of time. Implement the plan. It might be about kind of breaking that down, planning it in, kind of bouncing that off somebody else that's trusted to kind of help you with that. Implement the plan, which is where the Anxiety often comes in of kind of the doing, and then review it. So did it work? Has it solved the problem? Or do you need to go back to square one and kind of think of another solution and revisit that plan? Okay, next. This is a bit of a whistle-stop tour of worry management, so please bear with us. We can come into your team, we can talk to you in more depth about kind of how to manage anxiety and worry, but it's just a brief overview. So then acceptance is also really helpful in those situations when we are faced with uncertainty and we're feeling out of control. So it's about kind of reminding ourselves that acceptance in this context involves relinquishing the resistance to what has transpired, coming to terms with challenging events and allowing ourselves to feel sadness. It does not imply forgiveness or simply getting over it. It's about accepting and not fighting back against decisions or kind of what you're being asked to do. Okay, next. And then, oh, sorry. Go.
Thanks, Laura. Where to go for support? So we've touched upon internal support in the workplace as well, but there's a host of organisations across the region as well. Some of those we've touched upon in this morning session as well, but on the screen we've actually got quite a few organisations which we thought, again, you might find useful as a signpost as well. And not forgetting NHS Talking Therapies, which is Vita Healthcare across the organisation. So whether it's yourself, whether it's a team member, whether it's a colleague, where stress has been prolonged and it's affecting the quality of their day-to-day work or their life, Talking Therapies can actually help people confidentially as well. Again, so that's a unique space where we can offer treatment for a range of common mental health problems, anxiety and depression as the umbrella term as well. And within that, we have employment support. So the service that, again, I'm part of as well. It runs alongside treatment, so we don't offer silo support, but it's about the combination of work and health. It's what came first. Did work cause mental ill health or vice versa? It's chicken and egg situation. So again, it's that holistic approach of how we can support people. But again, I'm sure there's more than these within the region as well, but it's just highlighting where we can go for as a signpost as well.
Absolutely. And as AJ mentioned, within our service, we have lots of different types of support, lots of different levels of support. So it's very quick to make a referral. You can do that online using a chatbot, or you can give us a ring and get in touch with us that way. With what is happening for you all at the moment and that turbulent time, anxiety and low mood is really natural and kind of an expected response, but we can support you. We've got Silver Cloud, which is an online resource where you can work through tools and techniques in your own time and space. We've got webinars on a whole host of different topics. We've even got the toolkit where you can attend 1 or 2 sessions that are relevant to you as an individual, and maybe that's all that you need at the moment just to kind of get you back on track. We've also got cognitive behavioral therapy 1-to-1, and that is at a low intensity kind of quick approach, or kind of those longer term 1-to-1 therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy, counseling for depression. We've got interpersonal psychotherapy, dynamic interpersonal psychotherapy, counseling for depression with couples. There's so many options that are available for you as an employee and for your team. So think of us, reach out. And if you want us to kind of come in from a workplace point of view and deliver sessions on anxiety, stress, kind of a whole host of things that are in our prospectus, we will come in to your team and deliver that to you directly, if that is something that would be helpful. That's everything from us. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, AJ. That was a fantastic, really practical masterclass on how we can support our staff. And I will say, just as testimonial, really helpful in terms of workplace wellbeing. The team have been obviously your team, Laura and AJ, across LLR, but if you are from Northampton, there's similar services in your area. So I'll hand over for the closing comments from our LLR leaders, Shelley Way and Alice McGee. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to everybody. A really amazing 2 hours, and I feel like those 2 hours were my intentional moments. So it would have been really easy for me to spot the emails or get on the phone as I was half listening. But actually, it's really important for us all to stop and pause and use these tools that we've heard from today. A real massive thank you to Charlotte and Mariam. From the tech to the organising to helping all of our speakers prepare for today, and the fact that we've had at points over 150 people in the room really speaks to the value that everyone placed on the effort you've put in for our team. So thank you so much. And I'd also like to note that clearly my strength is not sitting in the silence, because I couldn't help but put in comments into the chat, but I will certainly think about that in terms of my communication. So thank you so much. Shirley, any of your reflections?
Thank you very much, Alison. I absolutely agree. It's been a fantastic 2 hours, and I must admit that when we had our break, I rang down to make a cup of tea, and I did say to my husband, do you know what? I haven't been tempted to look at my emails at all. So that says a lot. And, I've listened to this looking for looking at as being the chair, the co-chair, to pick up some points to say at the end. And I must admit, I've just got so lost in it, actually looking at myself as a manager, as an individual, and some of the points that I've taken away from people. Thank you so much, the speakers, and, Mariam and Charlotte, excellent event, and I'll just leave you some of the things I'm taking away. One certainly for me, embrace stillness without guilt. I'm dreadful on that. I need to be more purposeful in my busyness. I am definitely one of these that I've got to be busy. I've got to be seen to be busy. I've got to be busy. That's what it means. I realise, and I think today's a lot of this we've maybe heard before, but actually have we taken notice before, or we've maybe done an odd thing for a day or two. So today's been fantastic as either new information, as a refresher, and getting us to sit back and be quiet and take those moments. And for me, my promise was to take time each day, which I used to do, and then I got too busy, to plan and complete my decision matrix. I used to find it so useful. And the other which I do, which people we still continued but might find useful, is in our face-to-face team meetings, a person each time actually has responsibility to do a wellbeing activity. So it doesn't have to be, sometimes it is, taking that meditative moment and taking a deep breath. Sometimes, such as myself during COVID, when it was virtual, I had goats coming and virtually speaking to us. So don't forget as well that there's fun also to be included in the wellbeing. But thank you so much for such a fantastic 2 hours. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Shirley. Thank you, Alison. We want to say thank you to everybody for joining us today, for engagement, your energy, and support, and bearing with us with the tech, to our speakers. Thank you for taking that time out. If you're able to, please can you scan the QR code that's shown on the screen? Your feedback is very important to us. We'd love to hear what you found helpful throughout this conference, and what you might like to see if we look at future events. So please feedback to us, and a big thank you again from all of our guest speakers and our chairs and colleagues today. Have a wonderful rest of your day.